You're on.
Awesome. Well, I would like to start by just thanking you, Jacki, for leading us through these awesome exercises. This session has been a huge hit with our participants. It allowed us to go to a virtual program, and we're excited to learn a little bit more about awareness through movement and some of the prep work that we can do for our upcoming alpine season and winter season. So I think Nate is going to do a little bit more of an introduction, but so appreciate you doing all this for us, Jacki. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. My name's Nate. I'm the program manager at Adaptive Sports Partners. And today we're going to do some awareness through movement. We have some new AmeriCorps members we want to introduce to the ASPNC community. And we are happy to announce that we will be starting an alpine specific prep program with Jacki to get us all in shape for the alpine season. So hopefully this winter, we're not getting out there going, oh my God, my legs hurt. Jacki's going to have us in shape, ready to go. So we're very thankful.
Yeah.
We're going to have a successful, fun winter. So thanks, Jacki. Take it away.
All right. Well, before we get started, do you guys want to introduce yourself? We've got some volunteers, not only for this class, but also for the season. Why don't we start the way you are on my screen, which is with Tim.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tim. I've lived in the Mount Washington Valley area my entire life. My favorite sport is skiing.
Good enough. Mary, what brings you here, and what's the sport that you're really looking forward to?
Hi guys, I'm Mary. I'm from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I just graduated from Plymouth State. I'm excited to become a better skier, and I'm excited for some winter hiking as well.
How about you, Jacob? Welcome.
Hi everyone, my name is Jakob and I recently graduated from the University of South Carolina. I'm originally from Charleston and I just moved up and I'm really looking forward to getting out into the nature up here.
Jakob, I will get that right. And Natasha, hi.
Hi everybody, I'm Natasha. I'm a longtime ASPNC volunteer turned AmeriCorps member. My favorite sport is definitely snowboarding, so I'm excited to do this awareness through movement today and start getting ourselves ready for the ski season.
All right. So a little bit of intro. So awareness through movement is not exercise. Exercise is when you repeat a movement in order to get it really down, get it in your muscle memory, make it a reaction. And that's great. But sometimes we're practicing things that may not be kinesthetically optimal, or there may be other ways of doing the same thing that give us more choices. So where exercise goes deep, awareness through movement is an exploration of how to use your whole body to do things that maybe you know how to do but would like an alternative. Maybe making connections that have gotten broken because of injury or habit, or discovering new ways of moving that are surprising and might actually bring more ease, less pain. So let's begin. So some of you are going to be lying on the floor, and that's great for people who can get up and down from the floor. And some of you are going to be in a chair, like many of our participants who are more comfortable in a chair. So for those of you who are going to be modeling lying on the floor, could you lie on the floor facing the camera and on your side? So lying comfortably, you can let your arm go like this. If you're going to be in a chair, you want a nice firm chair, and you want your knees to be parallel with the floor. So if you're a person who uses a wheelchair, make sure that those foot pegs are adjusted so that your knees are level with your hips. And we're going to be pressing into the back of the chair. So just like Jakob is demonstrating there, he's got his side against the chair, and that's perfect. And if you are someone who is sitting on wheels, lock those babies down because we're going to be doing some movement. So let's begin by just closing our eyes and taking a deep breath and shifting gears into an exploration mode of really feeling into yourself. With this work, we don't make big movements. We make really tiny movements so we will notice what we're doing and notice when things change. So for those of you sitting on a chair, noticing how your sit bones rest against the chair, and for those of you lying against the floor, noticing how your hip rests against the floor and finding comfort, finding relaxation. And noticing if you're lying on the floor, as you take a breath in, do you feel how your ribs connect to the floor on the inhale and how they move away on the exhale? And for those of you sitting in a chair, same thing. When you take a breath in, can you find that connection along the side of the ribs? We're going to be focused today on the ribs, and a lot of people don't really give the ribs the kind of attention for the flexibility. There are, I'm forgetting the number, like 147 joints in the ribs. And when we've got that middle of our body moving, we have so much more control over our movements. So now I'm going to invite you to just, if you're lying on the floor, press your ribs into the floor. And if you're sitting against a chair, press your ribs into the back of the chair, the side of the chair. And notice what that's like. Just pressing the ribs. And where are you pressing? For you, what and where are your ribs? And if it turns out that it's a little uncomfortable to have your head propped up, let your arm go long and let your head rest on your arm if you're on the floor. Try that because we're going to be here for a while. So let that arm go long. That's it. Great. That's it. And then let that all go. Now in this practice, we take rests. Now why is that? Because we're about learning here. It is not about, building muscle. It's about building curiosity. And the nervous system can't learn if there's any stress. So if you start to get tired, if you start to get anxious, you're not going to learn. So we take a lot of rest. So now I'm going to ask you to think about, imagine now, and find in your mind the middle of your ribs and press just the middle of your ribs either into the floor or into the back of the chair. And how do you do that? How do you find a way to press just the middle of the ribs? So here are some things to think about. As you press the ribs against the floor, you might notice that those ribs kind of spread apart a little bit. That movement of pressing the ribs spreads them apart a little bit. And then on the other side, the side that's either away from the chair or facing the ceiling, those ribs come together a little bit. So see if you can find that. See if you can find that sensation of the movement of the ribs. Good. Now we're going to ask a little more of your imagination. So now I want you to imagine that there's a very gentle hand just resting on the top side, the away from the chair side of the ribs. So in the middle of the ribs, there's this gentle hand, and you can use your own hand if you want, or do your imagination. And this gentle hand is just very, very, so slightly, just putting a little pressure from the top so that the ribs either sink into the floor or press into the chair. So focusing on where that hand connects, and then releasing and coming back to center. And then again, that gentle hand presses a little bit and come back to center. And the hand is pressing right, you really feel it on the upside or the side that's away from the chair. And then you let that go in your imagination for a moment. And then that hand comes back, and now it's going to just lift away. And you're going to just follow it. So the hand lifts away, and the side of the body, the ribs that are on the outside, on the upside, they kind of reach up a little bit to follow that hand. And what's that like? You might notice that the ribs against the floor or against the back of the chair kind of pull away a little bit. Maybe they come together a little bit. And notice as that hand pulls away, do you want to take an inhale or an exhale? They're both right, but just noticing for you. As I open up on that side, for me, that is an inhale because those ribs are coming apart, or for me, opening out that side is an exhale because the ribs on the other side are coming together. And now, changing your focus back to the ribs that are against the floor, that are against the chair, that gentle hand, that perfect ski buddy, that very gentle guiding force is now going to press the bottom ribs, the ribs against the chair. It's the force goes right through, right to the bottom ribs. So the movement translates right across from that hand into the ribs. And now the ribs again are pressing downward or pressing towards the chair. And what's that like for you? And noticing for you, as those ribs against the floor now, those bottom ribs press against the floor and expand, is that when that's a good time to take an inhale? Or do you inhale on the return to center? And maybe in your imagination right now, you just get on the hill and look down the hill and pick your line and maybe run the line in your ribs. Just a suggestion. So now we're just going to go back to that little hand, that gentle hand on the ribs, and now it presses the upper ribs, the side that it's connecting with, presses those down, then lifts up a little bit, and then it presses right down to the other side of the ribs and pulls away a little bit. And it's the same movement, but does changing your focus change your experience of it? Because some people might think, oh, I can't move my ribs on this side, but they can move the ribs on the other side, and isn't that interesting? Now the ribs are moving. So now we're just going to let all of that go, and you can relax. Maybe you're already in your imagination on the hill. It's a beautiful sunny day. Your friends are all around, and you can't wait to take your first run. how would knowing about breathing into one side of the chest or the other, or when to take an exhale, how might that make you a little faster? Maybe a little more graceful. Okay, and now we're going to change focus down to the ribs that are the way bottom of the ribs. So the very lowest rib that you can find. And now that gentle hand rests on the outside, on the upside, and you just make that contact and you notice, where are the bottom of the ribs? How low do they go? Did you realize your ribs went to here? And then that gentle hand gives a very gentle press on those lower ribs. And how is that different from the middle ribs? Where do you feel the movement against the floor? Does your hip respond in a different way? Because as you press in, maybe you notice that there's a counteraction in the hip, that moving the ribs to one side gets the hips involved. Good, and then the little hand, the very gentle hand, just lifts away, and those bottom ribs separate, and the lower ribs on the side against the floor or the chair lift away a little bit. And now exploring what it's like to then press that imaginary hand right down into the floor, right into the ribs that are connecting with the floor or the chair. And it's a different shape from when the hand pressed on the middle ribs. So can you find the change in the shape when you use these lower ribs? And then that hand that's pressing against the lower ribs against the floor, now it lifts away. And the lower ribs lift or glide to the side. And then do a little backing and forthing. For yourself, what feels right. And maybe you also, in your imagination, play a game of, all right, it's going to be the hand on the top, presses down, then the hand lifts and the bottom ribs come away, and then the hand presses against the ribs right into the floor, and then it lifts comes away from the upper ribs. So playing a little game of all the variations of where you can think about this movement coming from. And breathing, and then just let it all go again. So you can take a deep breath, you can lean back in the chair. You can do whatever makes you feel comfortable in this moment. And noticing now as you take a deep breath, where's it coming in? And is it maybe a little fuller than it was when you first started? Are you finding different parts of your chest to let the air fill up? Can you find where the air comes into the back of the ribs? And is it just the one side of the back, or can you bring it into the whole back? All right, we've done the middle, we've done the lower. You know there's ribs up under your armpit, though we rarely are aware of them and they're very hard to really feel. But we're going to give it a go right now. So, with that gentle hand resting on the ribs under the arm, way up there, a slight press to the upper ribs. So you can start with pressure on the top side, the outside, just feeling what it's like to let those upper ribs get some sensation, get some attention. You may never have attended to these ribs before. So the hand presses down and then it pulls away a little bit, up under the ribs, up under the armpit. Those ribs come apart a little bit. See if you can find that. Great. That's it. And then if you're ready, if your imagination can pull it off, the hand presses right directly into the ribs that are in contact with the surface, and you press down, and those ribs press against the surface and they come apart. And then the hand lifts away and they come together. And then apart with pressing the hand, and then the hand comes away and they come together. And a few more times on your own pace now. The ribs against the floor come apart. They come together and even lift a little bit. And as they lift a little bit, you might notice something happens in the shoulder blade. You're holding your poles and you find that compression of the ribs under the armpit, and the shoulder blade does something. Maybe locks in a little bit. And then feeling it on the other side, side to side. Good. And let that go for a minute. And you're asking, how come we're doing everything on one side? Am I going to be uneven? Maybe, but probably not. So we'll see at the end what that's like. Okay, now for those of you who are on the floor, let your top arm come up over your head and grab the bottom ear. And for those of you sitting on the chair, it's the outside arm comes up over the head, grabs the other ear, and now everyone, let the elbow that's up in the air start to come back to the floor, and the head lifts from the floor for those of you that are on the floor, and for those of you in the chair, the elbow comes down towards the chair and you find a stretch in the neck. Now this isn't a stretch, but notice how when you guide the weight of the head, can you find more movement as well in those ribs? Oh yeah, I see someone doing a beautiful job. Beautiful, Natasha. That's it. Tim, put your hand over the ear. Yep, over. Okay, now slide it over the top of your head. Grab that's the ear, and now that elbow on the top comes up towards the ceiling to lift the head. Yeah, great. Okay, very nice. Let that go. And now if you're on the floor, the top leg, the knees stay together, but you're just going to lift that top ankle towards the ceiling. So the knees stay together. Yep, keep it soft and just a little bit. And notice if you can find the movement in your ribs. And if you're sitting on the chair, the ankle slides up and away a little bit. And see if you can find the echo in the ribs. And if letting the ribs become more mobile helps you make that movement possible. So the foot is lifting, and maybe you're finding that echo as the ribs press into the floor. Good, let that go. Again, finding where you're breathing, taking it deep. We have a couple more variations to really help emphasize now. We're going to bring together the pieces that we've been doing. The ribs, the ribs, the ribs. Now the head and then the ankle. Let's start to bring it all together so that when you're making that reach on the climbing wall or you're getting ready to slide off the lift and start your run, you're going to be ready. So now the top hand comes over the head, grabs that ear, and at the same time, that foot, that ankle that we were lifting, comes up. So together you lift the head and you bring the foot up, and see if you can find, this is where it's a little easier to have something to push against, because you want to find where in the center, what's the center of this shape, and how can I use the ribs to help me with that? And what part of the ribs? Is it the middle of the ribs, the upper ribs, the lower ribs? Maybe you try each of the parts of the ribs and see where you find the support to lift the head and lift the foot. Yep, and it's getting that. That's it, Thomas. This beautiful side bending. That's it, Nate. Nice. That's it. Yep, but don't, and come all the way down to rest in between your movements. That's really important. We don't want to be gripping here. We're not trying to build muscle. We're trying to give the nervous system new ways of approaching a movement challenge. All right, one more variation. Going to imagine someone's got a hand on your hip and is pressing it away. So if you're on the floor, now can you push your hip down towards your foot? And if you're on the chair, maybe you get over, really on the edge there to give yourself some room to push the hip down. Pushing it down. Good. And there's that hand pushing the hip, and then let that go for a moment and imagine there's a hand now on your shoulder pushing your shoulder towards your head. So you might find that bending on the underside. So before we were arcing away from the chair. Now the hand is on the hip, the hand is on the shoulder. One hand is pressing your hip away, the other is pressing your shoulder away from it, and we're making an arc this way. And what's that like? So it's a big open arc, yeah. And then you can do a little back and forth thing. So the hand pulls the head up and the ankle come up, and you get an arcing on one side. The elbow side ribs really come together. And then you can try it the other way, and you push away, and the outside ribs really separate, and the inside ribs come together. So going back and forth, see how much of your full body you can get engaged in this movement of, yeah, beautiful, Natasha. That's it. And spreading, yep, that's it. Nice. Great. Okay, put that away for a moment. And now, really quickly, pressing the middle ribs against the surface, then the lower ribs, then the upper ribs. And notice if there's any change in your flexibility, if you can go further. And is there any change in the way that you are aware of your ribs and how the whole body either moves as a result of the movement of the ribs, or how movements in the foot and the head can flow through the ribs. All right, so if you can get up and walk around, now's a good time to stand up and see what it feels like. And maybe take a walk around and take a notice about how your chest feels. Where are your shoulder blades? Where's the breath coming in? Nate, we're losing your head. Oh, we love Zoom. We love Zoom.
Nate feels like he's on top of a mountain right now.
Yes, yes, I know. Maybe even a little bit of altitude.
Yep.
All right,
in the clouds.
All right, well, that was the lesson. So I want to invite you now for just a minute to think about, like I said, you're at the top of the mountain, you got the skis on, and you've picked your line and you're ready to go. So maybe just do it. Do some skiing. Nobody wants. There's not. We got Natasha going. We got Tim going, and has this business about getting the ribs involved. Can you find a way to bring that into your skiing? Any comments? All right.
Definitely,
That's,
it definitely will
awesome
help
for
with
skiing.
stacked skiing, and yeah, a lot of power. That's an important thing to focus on and to have a little more mindful approach to it. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think focusing on the ribs for that separation of upper body, lower body to, like Tom said, stack your weight for that outside leg. That's what I'm always feeling for.
Yeah, when I'm trying to imitate shifting my body, I'm definitely aware of, my ribs, separating or coming together.
Is that new for you?
To be so aware of it, yeah.
Great. Well, now anything, Mary?
Oh, yeah, just what Natasha said.
With the ribs. Right. So now when you're on the mountain and maybe you're coaching or being coached, you have a language, you have something, a process that you can go through or describe to other people about maybe something about finding that feeling of the ribs coming together, the ribs coming apart, how that, we didn't really talk about it, but how it travels through the spine. So maybe that image of while you're sitting on the lift, that image of the gentle hand giving a little pressure, just a little bit of pressure and then pulling away. All right, well, that's the take home. If your homework is when you're lying on your side next time, see if you can find the middle, the lower, and the upper ribs, especially the upper ribs, because they're so hard to find and so important in using the poles. All right, thank you. And yeah.
I'd love to also tie it in with one of our other adaptive programs, climbing. I think it's a great example. You're on the wall and you're making that reach, how to use your body to its potential or full potential while you're making that difficult reach for the next hold.
Right,
Great for our
especially
climbers.
with the real opening, and if you can get that foot connected to the arm with the ribs opening in between, that's really going to give you some reach. Cool. All right. Thank you all.
Excited to ski now.
I know.
Especially with your
Goodness,
backdrop.
oh
I
my
know.
God.
Like, I just keep looking at that powder.
I know. Well, I'm going to have to get the front 5 behind me next time. All right.
Yeah.
Well, this is great. It's so much
Awesome.
fun to meet you all. Thank you for coming. And
You feel great. Thank you, Jackie.
bye-bye.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Well, thanks,
Jackie.
Jackie. All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jackie. That was an awesome lesson for our upcoming ski season. And I just want to remind everyone to stay tuned. There'll be a whole series coming out to get you ready, and we hope to see you on the mountain.
All right. Thank you. Bye.